Hi all, this is Simona Rich, and in this video I would like to address one issue with regards to Eastern spiritual practices, especially Taoism and Hinduism. Westerners find it difficult to disengage the mind, and in many practices as such, and also in Buddhism, it is required to perceive not through the mind, and Westerners find it very difficult to do, and they still engage their imagination, and other mental processes are not stopped, and this results in just illusory enlightenment. They think themselves to have achieved either enlightenment or some high spiritual state, when in fact it's just mental deceptions. So in many Eastern practices, it is required to kill the conscious mind so that the real mind can emerge. And I already wrote a previous article about it, and I made a video about it. It is claimed by many Eastern spiritual doctrines that our conscious mind is a false construct which creates separation from life. We perceive ourselves as separate from the rest of life, and it creates misery and suffering. And basically, in Eastern traditions, in many Eastern spiritual traditions, it is tried to destroy this conscious mind so that real pure mind can emerge. Like it's told in the Bible, unless you become a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So basically, the way to achieve a no mind state, there is mind, but the absence of conscious mind is through disengaging, not employing that conscious mind, which is possible to do through increased periods of silence between thoughts. So basically, you try not to start any mental process, and you just dwell in that absence of thought, and that's where wisdom will spring from, because wisdom is what Eastern spiritual practices aim at, rather than knowledge. In the West, knowledge is treasured, but in the East, it is taught that knowledge comes from Maya, from the projection, the illusory existence that the mind itself projected, and you will never gain enough of it. There will always be not enough of knowledge, because this illusion tends to develop, evolve, grow. So there will be more and more knowledge to pursue, and people die pursuing knowledge without feeling much wiser. So basically, in Eastern traditions, it is taught, instead of pursuing knowledge, to drop all the information that you have acquired, and instead dwell on the inner root, which means just being centered, just focusing on your inner self, on your essence, just dwelling in no thought, in nothingness, and from there wisdom will spring. And in Eastern spirituality, it is taught that although you will want to share that wisdom with the world, if you want that state of enlightenment to mature, you should prevent yourself from sharing that wisdom until you're truly established. Because what happens is that people get glimpses of their true nature when they keep dwelling on no thought, and then they want to share the wisdom that arises, but that's still too early a stage to do so. So in Eastern spiritual doctrines, it's encouraged just to allow yourself to mature in that state, and then you will achieve permanent enlightenment, which means that you have totally destroyed your conscious mind and you only have the pure mind. And Carlos Castaneda says that when this state is reached, when the false construct, as he says, given by the flyers, the archons, is gone, the conscious mind, then you will find yourself with a pure mind that is totally undeveloped because you never used it before, and that pure mind is unconscious mind. You never used it before, and there is a challenge to destroy the false construct, the external mind, but it's even a bigger challenge to start functioning with your true mind, because in the world today, nobody, almost probably nobody, employs that true mind. All of us are stuck with that conscious mind, and therefore upon its destruction it's going to be difficult to function. So that is yet, you just don't become enlightened after the destruction of that mind, but you have to get established in that state and learn to use that unconscious mind. And so the process is great. It's a long process, and what happens is that people get some glimpses of the state of enlightenment, and they think themselves gurus, they think themselves enlightened. I heard many times gurus attracting thousands of devotees to explain that they have experienced that state, but it did not last, it ended. But they perceive themselves enlightened, and they're not. They haven't yet destroyed the conscious mind fully. They just got glimpses of the state of oneness, and many people did. I did also. That doesn't mean that I'm enlightened. It just means that you just got a glimpse of what's ahead if you keep practicing staying in stillness, if you keep meditating. So basically I'm making this video because of one reader who told that many Westerners are deceived. They think themselves progressing, they think themselves enlightened, when actually they are totally intellectualizing this entire process. They perceive everything through the mind. They cannot disengage from the mind. The mind deceives them into thinking that they are enlightened, but the mind is not killed, that conscious mind, the false construct. So it keeps them in delusion. And I believe that the reason Westerners are so attracted to Buddhism is because it's a very intellectual doctrine. There are many outgrowths of it that are highly intellectual, and the people that write such books, intellectual books on Buddhism, they themselves have not achieved nirvana, but they just intellectualize the process. They still keep their conscious minds very active, and that is the problem. This is not the pure Buddhism, and it's not Taoism, it's not Hinduism. All these doctrines aim at destroying the conscious mind, and the conscious mind, upon hearing such a thing, is fearful, and you may feel fear when I say destroying conscious mind, but that's not your fear. And I like the books of Carlos Castaneda because especially the book The Teachings of Don Juan, because that book clearly explains that we are just identified with this conscious mind, but it's not our mind, it's just the construct, and we feel we are cut off from the world because of it. We have ego because of it. We experience suffering and emotional ups and downs because of it. So all these Eastern traditions try to destroy it so that we become as a child of God again, so that we regain purity, so that we regain the kingdom of God, we regain the state of heaven. And again, this can be done through sitting still, by meditation, by not engaging the mind, by not allowing the thought to develop, but just trying to dwell in between the thoughts, in the gaps between the thoughts. And this state of stillness will start increasing if we regularly practice this way, and then we start getting glimpses of oneness. of you being at one with the whole universe. And these glimpses can come in many ways, as I mentioned in a previous article. For example, once I was in a cafe and I sat still and I became one with the environment in the cafe. I became everything in the cafe. And once I experienced the state where I was at one with the whole universe. I was everything. So these states will start coming if you practice no thought. And when you just try to be present as much as possible, doing things consciously, not living in a dream world, but just staying totally present, and these states will start coming, and then they will start expanding in your life until only they remain, and your conscious mind is gone, and you are left with your original mind, which only very few people manage to uncover. And it's told in Taoism that if you regain that original mind and you get established in that stillness, you are basically the universe itself. You understand, you are then truly wise, and you can dematerialize, you can walk on water like Jesus did, because you are the universe. Your powers then are unlimited. You have identified with God, with the energy of God. You are the energy of God. You're no longer deceived that you're this small human being, unable to do many things, highly limited, but you know your true source because now you're at one with it. So then you are able then to perform miracles. So this is the aim of Eastern spiritual traditions, and unfortunately many Westerners intellectualize these teachings. They perceive it through the mind, they try to achieve it through information, through the mind, and therefore they don't make any spiritual progress, although they think they do. So this is the danger I wanted to address as a result of a comment that I received. I hope it was useful for some of you. Thank you for watching. Take care.